Man, that was a fun introduction.
Oh,
That music, I'm like, let's go. I feel like we're at a massive concert right now, and Kristen just danced up on stage. We're so excited to have you on the podcast today. It's been a long time coming. Obviously, we've got to share a podcasting platform in the past in many different arenas, but specifically today, we are celebrating because we have a new book on the market for Fit Press, and it is with the one and only Christin Kingsbury. And her book is called The Family Banking Blueprint. And we're going to get into all the details today. But first off, Kristen, I just want to say hi. And I'm so grateful to have you here. And I can't wait for your wisdom bombs to drop on the community today.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. It is like you say, it's been a journey, and I'm excited to finally get to this point. I printed this out because, I'm a paper person, and I looked and I'm like, oh, did we do this?
It's really crazy, you
It's
guys.
overwhelming.
Toiling over every word, every page. And I would say more than any book and any author that we've had, not because she's a perfectionist, because she aspires to excellence, right? Excellence matters, but also because this isn't just a typical like write your heart out and put it in a cover and a binding and give it to people. It really is meant to be a tool. It's meant to serve in a really profound way. And there are so many additional like resources and elements of training inside. It kind of feels like a curriculum as much as it does like a companion in the way in which you're going to serve it to people. And you just have a heart for really simplifying real estate investing and building generational wealth, which is literally the subtitle of the book. Can you tell us the backstory of, because you didn't get born into that, tell us the backstory and the evolution and how it's connected to the book right now.
Yeah, no, I think the short version is I had two extremely different worlds when I was a kid. I had my mother's house, and then I had my grandmother's house. And my mother's house, my mom, worked nights at a gas station for like $4.35 an hour. And sometimes there was people threatening to rob her. Sometimes, like, it was crazy.
Wow.
And we lived in various different places. As I think about the years, like sometimes we didn't have running water. Other times we were living in a, old single wide in a trailer park with multiple roommates. And it was really, it is like wah wah as it sounds. I actually didn't know as a kid that I was just living life, having a good time. Like there was kids are so resilient. And so, that I watched her be pretty codependent on the finances of an abusive husband that came into the picture, drugs, all these things. And then I saw she would constantly drop me at my grandma's, usually at about 2 a.m. when there was chaos going on at home. And my grandma's house was like this safe space. And she was married for many years until my grandfather died. And she was in the real estate space, and she could pay for education if we needed it. She could pay for travel if we needed it. Mm-hmm. There was all these things that we got to experience and do with my grandmother. And I kept thinking to myself, like, what is the difference with these two worlds? And really the difference was confidence and knowledge. And both of them could have been available to both. But a lot of our growth is like through our mindset. And so anyway, watched grandma do it a different way. And I studied these two women for all of my life. They both love me to this day, like at the largest level. But yeah, just really watch the two of them and watch the experiences that they could provide. And I'm like, I want to know what that lady knows. And I want to do what that lady's doing, because I never want my kids. And honestly, probably initially it was, I wanted to have children, and I never wanted them to be in the situation that I was growing up in. And so, and yet here was this magic over in this other house that I was like, wow. And so, as a kid, that's how you perceive it. And you learn as you grow up that that's not necessarily how it was, but that was how I was perceiving it as a child. And just really got to experience both poverty and wealth in the same life and compare and contrast. So it was really a blessing and an adventure that we were on, and so much that I learned through the years from observing those two wonderful ladies.
It so reminds me, I'm sure this isn't the first time, but of the Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki book. Like, it's like living that out in reality and what that looked like. I love that it's both women, obviously,
Yeah.
like just because of because of who we are as a company, but also who we are as women, and knowing that we can empower women specifically in finances, and that it doesn't have to be a torch that only the men carry. And I think that that book is very harnessed in on men for
Yeah.
this reason.
Yeah.
Male author, and it's two guys. And so what a beautiful representation, and I can't wait to send a copy to Robert Kiyosaki.
You know, it's interesting that you say that because I've never really thought about it that way, but you're very right. Like women live a different life. We've got different responsibilities. And so often we put ourselves and our careers and things like that on the back burner to take care of the family. And so watching two women and seeing, wait, women can do this too. And actually, my grandma's a genius with building wealth through real estate. And
Yeah.
so it she is the matriarch of, you know, the family and whatnot.
Yeah.
And yeah, it does. And she still did all those things. And she taught me a lot of lessons on how to balance that along the way, and how to quit being a perfectionist and thinking that I'm supposed to show up like Betty Crocker, you know?
Right. That's so good. And it's so cool because you did something unique in the honoring of your grandmother and the legacy that she's left in you, and now your children and me and all these other people that you're connected to. You actually utilized her very words and those lessons and put them in the book. Tell us about that process. And was she like, no, don't do that? Or was she excited? Like, what was her lens? I never asked you
I'm
this.
not sure. I'm not sure I told her all the things I was doing. This is going to be half a surprise because she's going to be like, you know, really what it came down to is during COVID when they locked everybody down, my grandmother had been a traveler and an adventurer my entire life. Like if she was home for 2 weeks at a time, you were like, what are you doing home?
Wow.
She was in China and Russia and Australia and Egypt and all of the places. And
Wow.
so when they said, and I think she was about 96, 95, 96 at that time. They said, "Hey, you can't go out." And she had a lot of fear in her. I thought, we got to give this woman a purpose. Like we're not going to let her go out locked up in a house, you
Absolutely.
know? Like so I needed to creatively find a way that her and I could interact daily and really take the knowledge or take something that she knew and was excited about and just work on a project. And so I actually had no idea that this was going to turn into a real book. This was a project to help give my grandmother life during COVID. And as we wrote it, and I would give her a topic that I wanted to talk about, and I would say, okay, you write on your experience, I'll write on my experience. And we would write these two things. And then it came together, and I'm like, how in the world are we going to tell two completely different stories in the same story? Like, I didn't think that one through.
Yeah.
And and to your suggestion, like, why don't you just take her words and her stories and put them within the chapters of your stories where you're talking about the same topic? And so we did that, and we used handwriting and her words, and she really doesn't have any idea what this is going to look like when it's done.
That's
I
so
don't even know that
cool.
she knows what it says other than the stories that she implemented. I tell her often, like, I don't think you realize how much I learned from you. Like,
Mhm.
obviously, I think I just watched her my whole life.
Sure.
And she'll be like, "I taught you that?" Like, she doesn't even know.
Aw.
So this is kind of my gift to
Wow.
her. She is going to be 99
Oh,
in 2 months.
oh
And
my
so this
gosh,
is
so you'll have
yeah,
the book in hand.
right
She'll be
after
able to
this
oh,
yep, her birthday is right after this comes out. Maybe we'll be on a book tour. Maybe I'll take her
that would
with us.
be yeah, exactly. She would love that so much.
Yeah,
She'd be like, "Let's go." You
yeah.
guys, so she's about to be 99, and, like, we couldn't even lock her down to get a photo of her because she's never home. She's
You're not wrong.
traveling all the time. I'm
That's
like, "When
right.
do we get a picture of Grandma Claire? Like, does she
You're
even
right.
really exist, Kristen, or is she a figment of your imagination?" But
That's
this
funny.
she's so wise, and
Yeah,
that wisdom has just dripped onto you. And I think that there's like, from those who understand biblically, there's this Elijah, Elisha anointing, and it's this mantle carrying where you literally have been passed the mantle, and this mantle that you're now carrying, which she was like well beyond femininity or a feminist movement. I mean, she was doing things, even to say she was traveling. There was no
yeah,
digital nomads back then, y'all. She didn't have social media to be like, hey guys, I'm running a real estate team and I'm
yeah.
in China right now. Like that was just non-existence. I don't even know how she did that because there was no email. So like she was just had a team. She was an effective leader. She was literally allowing community and to do what we're supposed to do, which is rely on other people and their gifts and talents. When I can't even do that without an AI bot at this point. Thanks, Chat GPT.
It is fascinating to think back, like, how did you and she was very involved in the community. She has the biggest heart to give, like, she gives more than anybody I've ever met in my life. And I think just she would get into politics. She has no fear is part of it, is like she would just get herself involved in whatever she thought she needed to be a part of. And it was all about relationships
Yeah.
and really all about networking. Like she still to this day, she lives like an hour and a half from where her girlfriends are. And the few of them that are still left living, she drives to Flagstaff like every Tuesday to have breakfast with them. So she always prioritized friendships like above everything,
Wow. Well, you've
which
done that to me,
I,
and I love
I
that so
do.
much.
I
Yeah,
do
see,
do
so
that.
she's
That's
taught you
where the
so
wealth
many
really is.
things. But it's so good, and I don't wanna make it just about Grandma Claire, but I am curious from my own legacy building with my own children, what was her mom like? Like, what was your great-grandma like? Did she learn that from someone in her life? Like, who was she emulating? Where'd that fire come
No,
from other
I've
than God?
I've asked her that, no, her mother was very sick. She ended up raising 6 kids by herself, brought them out from New York. Her family was wealthy. They grew up in New York, and I believe her father was a chiropractor, but they had a wealthy family, and he had a drinking problem and lost all their money. And so she, as a child, had to learn how to make money to get her family out of the ghetto, basically, because they ended
Wow.
up losing everything. And so she would rent bicycles because they had been rich kids and now they were poor, and she still had a bike. And so she would rent her bike and charge late fees if they were late. I mean, she is so
Wow. So much
isn't that cool?
ingenuity.
I
Oh my
know.
gosh.
I think it was again a heart to not let her family down. Like it's
Yeah.
always been that with her. And even from the time she was young, and she didn't know anything about real estate, came out to Arizona, was a school teacher. So she had the heart of a teacher, and ended up falling in love with a cowboy that went into building and construction. And she was just like, you know what? This industry pays the highest dollar
Yeah.
for this knowledge. My husband has some knowledge around houses. I'm helping him sell those. I'm going to go learn this industry and get licensed. And really, I think what people fail to recognize is that in real estate, people think it has to be really hard to build wealth and take lots and lots of transactions. And it was only a few transactions that built the majority of her family's wealth.
Wow.
And sometimes it was a matter of buying something that she could see in the future, like the city was going to want, but it wasn't there yet. So she was future pacing and thinking down the road. And then when it would get to where they wanted it, it was a high value now, and she had paid nothing for it. And so then she
Wow.
would negotiate, hey, this is what I want for that, and she negotiated some really, like bought land at tax sale and then sold it to the city years down the road next. And they traded her land next to the university, which obviously is high value property.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
just, it was fascinating, but it was literally only a very few transactions that built this massive amount of wealth that sent all her kids to college, all her grandkids to college, traveled us all kinds of
Wow.
amazing places. And I think we overthink it. We think
Yes.
that, oh, I got to do it forever and it's got to be a lot. And it doesn't have to be.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that specifically to the listener in the community here. We've got this faith-driven leaders kind of podcast where a lot of people are listening from the lens of their relationship with God, who is a God of providence, a God of prosperity, a God of abundance. Not a prosperity gospel preacher over here, but he provides. He's our provider. And then they're also coming at it from a lens of entrepreneurship and leadership and how do I do this more effectively, pragmatically. And then you're over here telling us it doesn't have to be so hard. It doesn't have to be so difficult. It's like taking away this idea of religion, one, which I'm so grateful for because you're an advocate for relationship, but also it's taking away this like heavy burden, right? The heavy laden burden of like, gosh, life is so hard. Entrepreneurship is so hard. Everything that I do has to be so hard. I don't get to be a mom in this season or a wife in this season because I'm just hustling to get the next dollar.
Yeah.
You simplify it. And I want you to start specifically because I think it's profound with like that first investment that you made and how you got the cash to do that. And then also like teach us some simplifying methodologies for us to be able to do the same thing. Because I think ultimately anyone who's listening is like, hey, me too. I want to be a me too in this scenario.
It's funny. So a couple of things. My grandmother had a real estate license, and she always told me, you don't make your money selling real estate, you make your money buying it. And I was like, what? Like, you do this for a living. What do you mean you don't make your money selling real estate? But what she meant was, so the first house that I ever bought, I want to say I was like 19 maybe. And I was all the rowdiness of a 19-year-old girl, and I needed to get out of town because I was going to end up in trouble if I didn't. And so I moved to this town actually that I'm sitting in right now. And I was paying rent, and I was like, this crappy apartment sucks. Like, I know that I'm supposed to buy real estate. That's what my grandmother has done my whole life. So she had a real estate license. And the beauty of a real estate license, even if you don't use it to make the purchase, you can use the commission as your down payment. So two different things that happened at that time. My grandfather had passed away when I was 13, and he had left me a little tiny piece of property in the middle of nowhere that nobody ever heard of and really wasn't worth much. I held on to that. Obviously, I couldn't sell it till I was 18 or 19. I sold it for $10,000. So I had this $10,000. And yes, that was an absolute blessing to me, but I know that anybody can come up with $10,000.
Yeah, for sure.
The other thing that I hadn't thought about, and I was thinking about this the other day, is she had a real estate license. And so she never charged us when she would represent us as an agent. She would just tell them, let her keep my commission. And so those two things went as the down payment on my house. It was probably a total of 13 grand, right? And, now your commission 3% could be your entire down payment. If you just had a real estate license and went and bought your own house and used your commission as your down payment, you don't even need a down payment. And so we used those two things. They qualified me for a loan back then with no job. I was a college student, and I thought, well, how am I going to pay the bills on a house? I have a mortgage now. How am I going to do this? So I got some roommates. As a matter of fact, my boyfriend moved in with me, and I started charging him rent. And him and his buddy paid rent on this brand new house. It was a beautiful little place. And I never bought what I wanted. I always bought what I could afford. And so this was a little tiny bitty place, and they paid the mortgage on it. We lived there probably 4 years and sold the place. And I made, I don't know, $150,000 as a child. And so I was like, oh, I'm doing this. Like, this is, so I caught the bug. And then I was like, what else can I buy and make $150,000?
Yeah, for real. And you know that it's so small. Like, your profound note here of like, I didn't buy what I want. I bought what I could afford. This is just like, if America did this at large, imagine the situational difference we would all be in. So that's profound.
Yeah. I think often, like, whether it's cars, clothes, anything that we're spending money on, we're always trying to, they say, keep up with the Joneses. And we do that, but the Joneses are broke. Like, they have insane credit card debt. They have all kinds of liabilities and mortgages, and those are the people that have to hustle because they have no choice but to keep up that lifestyle. If you build it in a way that's incrementally growing each time you can afford and you're upgrading, pretty soon you have an incredible, you have the lifestyle you wanted to build, but you don't have the debt that goes along with it.
So do you think now, because that was obviously a couple decades ago when you did that $13,000 down payment and purchase, what does that number look like now for someone who's like, hey, Tamara, if you could get $10,000 or you could get $30,000, then we could play. Like, what is that number like?
Probably 20.
20. Okay. Yeah. That's still not that massive difference. Yeah.
And like I say, if you go take the 90-hour real estate class and you just use your commission as your down payment, you don't need anything. Like, as a matter of fact, you don't actually need anything to buy a house. And that's one of the big misconceptions. It's not easy, but I just closed. I had some friends that were paying like $5,000 a month for a house because there were 6 of them, and they were like, this is ridiculous. And they didn't have any down payment. They were living, it was hard to even come up with extra income because it was so expensive where they were renting. And we just used a combination of some creative loans put together, and they literally moved in for no dollars out of pocket. So
Wow.
it's not, I mean, we make it way harder than it is.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's also presented that way so that it doesn't, it kind of affects the market in general. It affects the mindset in general. So give us some more from that lens on mindset connected to, generational wealth. And I think real estate being the main kind of vehicle here that we're talking about, you even put some calculators inside of the book on where are you at now? Where do you want to be? Let's talk about some of the assets that you're focused on inside of the book. And then how can we like jump into that? Obviously, we need it as a resource. So everybody's got to go and get the book ASAP because you're going to want it. Family Banking Blueprint. Go right now to Amazon, purchase it. It's going to be in Barnes and Nobles before you know it. Talk to us a bit about those so that we can kind of wrap our head around it beyond just like you need to go get a real estate license and go buy a house.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, you don't have to do any of that, but
Yeah.
it does help because real estate historically has always gone up in value. Like we've had some blips where things drop, but if you look at the history of real estate, it's an upward trend, even
Right.
if we had some blips, I would say there was a lot packed into that question. So let me know if I forget what you're.
Okay, I'll guide you.
Mindset wise, again, I looked at these two women and I'm like, what in the world is the difference? And really, it was one believed she could and the other believed she couldn't. So, number one, like getting out of our heads and just reminding ourselves, like, God created us to be amazing and abundant and in his image. He didn't create us to lack and to like, we are in his image, which means like we can do amazing things. And so just reminding ourselves, even when we don't think that, it's still true. So change your thinking because you're not going to change your life until you change your thinking. Beyond that, like I literally just wanted to walk people through. A lot of people have ideas and skill sets and talents, and learning how to monetize them so that they can save that extra money to have the down payment to create the portfolio of real estate that then pays them passively, because there's a period of time where you do have to hustle and work hard and generate some money such that you can buy things that pay for themselves and pay for your lifestyle. And so there's like this whole timeline kind of thing that you can expedite and go fast, or you can go slow. But I just walk through that. And then, a lot of times people are like, well, I don't know whether to buy this or not. I don't know if the numbers work. So I threw in there some investment calculator resources. I think one of the biggest things that makes us stumble is we don't even know where we're at. I talk to people every day who are sincerely believing they live paycheck to paycheck and there's no extra money in their account.
Right.
And then we go through and we audit their accounts and we look at what is actually a necessity versus what is a luxury, and how long can they deal without luxuries so that they can think about future. And they'll find thousands of dollars in their account, even when they truly, truly believe when they come to me that this is not a possibility. And I think being aware of what is your net worth, because when you gamify it and make it fun, like people hate to talk about money. It's yucky, it's boring, it's all these things. But if you can gamify it and make it fun, and if you know where you're at and you're tracking your levels and you're working to level up and work towards this goal and you make it fun, all of a sudden you're making it fun everywhere. And that moves the needle, instead of, so often people talk about money in a way that's like, oh my gosh, I don't want to read a book on money. I don't want to talk about accounting or taxes. Taxes are fun. Taxes are just the game of money and the game of moving money in the way that the government needs to fund things. And so when you realize that's a fun game, like, let's play it. You love the sun coming through. Sorry.
I do. It's just it's like a halo of light coming. God's like, hallelujah, listen, taxes are fun.
Sorry, I didn't plan for that.
It's so good. But I just want people to wrap their head around it. We've got even people who are on live right now and they're like, first up, they want to meet Grandma Claire.
Yeah.
And then secondly, just like the simplicity of thinking about an audit, right? Like people don't pause long enough to even process what is going on financially for me to continue to have this limiting belief of I don't have enough, or I'm working paycheck to paycheck, or how exhausting this is. Like that literally is the hamster wheel of the American dream. And Kristen is literally giving us an invitation to say, you don't have to live that way. And so if that is at all raising your blood pressure to a place of excitement or interest, the book is for you. The trainings are for you. She hosts retreats specifically for women. I can't wait to be on them. That is for you. Like to really go into an immersive educational opportunity to take off the fixed mindset of what has been blanketed on you, whether it's generationally past, trauma past, societally past, and to get into Grandma Claire's mind and say, I can do this as a woman. Like there's something so empowering about that. And in transparency, I'm literally being empowered by money for the first time in my life in a way I never have, even as an entrepreneur for the last 2 decades of my life. This is something brand new when it comes to personal finances and it comes to me actually focusing on generational wealth versus on just legacy. Because I think people take legacy not wrong, but they can look at legacy as simply character. And like, I know I'm going to leave an incredible legacy character wise to my kids. I
Yeah.
know that for certain. Wealth wise, I kind of have just been like, if it works and God does it, then God will do it and it'll be great. And that's the case. But like, I think my husband has always really carried that torch and I haven't. So that's why I'm such an advocate for women learning about it and not looking at it as it being difficult or not something that you have capacity to process. Not only I'm looking at it from a lens of protection. Like,
Yeah,
where
it
are you
is.
safe? Are you able to maintain a home over your head?
Yeah.
What happens if something drastically happens to your husband and
Yes.
you don't have the ability? What are you going to do? I
Yes.
honestly, even just months ago, didn't even know where our investments were, what that even meant. I didn't know
Yep.
any of these things. And so it's kind of been a shaking in the midst of writing this or helping you publish this book. It's like God is like, watch what happens when you pay attention to what I'm literally giving you as
Oh,
resources.
amen. That's awesome. I
It
love that.
is.
I didn't
It
even know
is.
that.
I
But
know you didn't.
I hear that so often. Like one of the things I hear most, I just had an incredible woman that was working with me and the stress of, my husband says I need to cut my expenses. My husband says I need to work
Mm,
more. And I'm like, wait, why? Do you know what your expenses are? No. Why not? Like,
right.
let's go get your expenses. Let's go look at them. I don't even know our bank accounts or our passwords or our
Mhm.
logins. Like so often in especially in like a traditional feeling marriage, it has been put on the husband to take care of all those things.
Mhm.
Sometimes and I mean, number one, you're not being a team if you're not participating
Good.
as a team.
That's
Like
good.
one of the things that has blessed my husband and I is from day one, we've been in this together and we've
Mhm.
been, what is our vision? Where do we want to go? What does that look like? What came in? What came out? We didn't play this. You don't have access to my bank accounts and I don't have access to yours. We literally, this makes people laugh. But if I'm going to spend more than about $200, I call and ask, hey, are
Yeah.
you good if I buy this? Because it's a respect thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I never get a no, but if I did get a no, I would not, like
Yeah.
it's just a matter of
Yeah.
of just talking about it and being on in a team in this life. Um, I like we have really thought we lived, hey, everything needs to be covered by one of our incomes because should
Yeah.
something happen to the other one, even maybe it's me. If something happens to me, is he okay taking
Right.
care of the kids, providing? But the more that real estate goes up in value and gets expensive, the more I realize how important investing early is
Yeah.
because my kids can move into one of my homes and not have to
Absolutely.
worry about really high expenses going to college or whatever it is that they want to do,
Sure.
building a business. They don't have to also think, how am I going to make a $4,000 a month house payment?
Right.
They could rent it out to their friends. So with real estate getting expensive, the need to get in and like ride that wave up is what are they going to do in 20 years when it's hard for them to get in at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I think coming back to this idea of simplicity and knowing that there are tools to support us. I was looking over like the index of your book, which I love. There's like the chapter outline, like you would usually see, but you'll also see an index and it has all of the different resources that are included. There's things like a mentor resource, a life road resource, getting clear, which is what we've been talking about here, 3 steps to freedom, your net worth tracker, which she addressed earlier, your money date resource, a red light, green light resource, an expense tracker. I mean, it goes on and on and on. into a money flow resource, an interest calculator, and a way to stay motivated. And so there's compound interest and there's all these pieces that she hasn't left it out. And I think oftentimes trainers or experts, I'm air quoting here, or even coaches, they find one little thing and they teach on that one little thing, but they're not giving the full breadth of understanding, which
Yeah.
is one thing I've really always valued about you because you're looking at it from so many different lenses and you actually are walking the walk. Like you actually are doing that as a mompreneur, as a spouse and a partner. Talk to us why is it taking you this long to like get to the place of saying it's time for me to share?
Um, I think maybe it's a midlife crisis. No, I'm kidding.
Not
No,
true.
I really had no idea that I had some kind of knowledge in my head that other people
Mm,
didn't have. For years, I was like, everybody knows this, right? Like everybody around me knew it. When you grow up in the real estate world, you feel like everybody around you knows these things, which then you later find out is not true because most real estate agents don't even own their own investment properties. A lot of times they don't even own their own home. But
wow.
I'm kind of one of those people that walks through life a little oblivious on rainbows and butter. Like I'm like, oh, everybody knows this.
This is
And
true, you guys. She's not just saying that.
I, I love it. It's the way that I am. I can't help it. But so one of the things that I think is a big need in life is you have to remove yourself from the people who think small and put yourself in an environment of people who think big, who are doing what you want to do. You hear that all the time, of course.
Yep.
Um, I really took that seriously, and I wanted to level up my life, and I placed myself in rooms that scared the living crap out of me, and I was like, "There is no way that, I'm gonna offer any value to this room. I'm just gonna go be in it, and I would absorb knowledge, and I would grow," and so I did that. I still do that. But one time I was in this room of people making millions, and, my mentor and friend who helped me, to put these ideas down on paper, said to me, "Tell them what you bought last week. Tell them." And he
Mm,
started going through every investment that I think I'd ever told him about. I didn't even know he listened
wow.
to me that detail. And
She's a
and
good mentor.
the funny part was I was like, "Wait, what?" And I was totally embarrassed because I'm in the room with people making millions and like big
Yeah,
business owners,
yeah.
who were outperforming me as far as income, and
Mhm,
yet I had more passive income. So that meant
mhm.
I got to work less and enjoy life more than these people who are making more money than me and hustling, 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 not knowing how to make their money make money. Um, and when I walked out of that room, I was, like, literally dumbfounded because they were like, "Can you teach me how to do that?" And that was the moment I was like, I actually didn't know that I knew something different than all of these people. I thought they
Mm,
were smarter than me, stronger than me, faster than me. And it dawned on me that nobody's like, I lived in a really blessed place where somebody planted these seeds and showed me the craziest ways to buy real estate and come up with passive income. And while they knew how to sell real estate, back to my grandmother's first quote, when she told me, you don't make your money selling real estate. You make your money buying and holding real estate. And
right.
so nobody had taught them that. And that was eye-opening for me. So then I realized I would go to these conferences with wonderful, wonderful God-loving humans who were going to give up their lives to go do good for the world. And the common comment over and over and over again was, "We will do this, like, we're committed, but we don't know how to fund it." And I
Right.
was like, "Oh my gosh, these are the best humans on the planet, and they're
Yes.
out to do wonderful things, and nobody's taught them how to fund it." So those 2 things really put me on a mission
Mm.
to, "Kristen, open your mouth." It's not anymore about, "Are you embarrassed? Are you scared?" It's about, "You have a responsibility."
So good. That last piece, I think, really lands home for our community of all the things that have been said because the other stuff can feel like cumbersome. Remember, this is the simplifying way to do this. So let's not stop there. Let's get curious about this last piece around generosity, which is something I just have always honored about you. Not only because it intrigues you and people will give away millions, which you haven't
Love it.
technically done, but you are doing it in a really profound way because of the legacy connected to each name, each household, each woman. I know you have invested in a like mobile home park, and this is one of my favorite things. Like these people, wouldn't be able to be in other places, and you've created a safe place for them. And I know the generosity that sometimes that means they're not paying rent when they should be paying rent, and there's a frustration connected to that. But your heart for people and to see people thrive is so profound. So for the people listening who are connected to these big missions, these big movements, these desires to do ministry, and they are like penny pinching, would you say this is like the invitation to break free from that penny pinching lifestyle?
Yeah, it's always driven me crazy that churches and
Yep.
people on missions have to beg for donations, and it's
Yeah,
gotten really hard. Nobody wants to donate anymore,
it's
partially
true.
because they don't have any money. They're living off of credit cards, but
Right.
also I think just burned out on
Yeah.
always being asked,
Yeah.
being asked, being asked. And so I think the beauty of the concept of doing it, like building wealth through passive income through real estate, and
Yeah.
then you can bless and give,
Mm.
is really freedom, because you can go do whatever mission you want, and it's self-funded. You don't have to, if people do give you money, if there's, fundraisers, awesome, but you don't have to go beg for money, and
Right.
that's not your limit anymore. Your
Right.
limitation is not a lack of money when you do it this way.
Well, I think the enemy has such a control over money, and like the lens of greed being one side, but then the lens of poverty being the other. And so it's like, how do we get into a place of safety, really believing and seeing that God is the God of provision, as we talked about at the beginning? And that does take activation on our part, and it does take risk. I think that that's
Yeah.
something people are fearful of, that this is too risky of a thing because now I'm not going to have this. But you have to, like you said, look to the future, look to like, what are you risking now to get something later?
Yeah.
And that patience play is so powerful.
And I think always tell people, don't bet the farm. Like,
Yes.
don't bet the farm.
Yes.
We always had a rule in our house that we would um risk
Yep.
anything but the roof over our head,
That's so good.
because the roof over our head protects our children.
Yep.
And so, and the other thing is, like, it doesn't have to take that much risk, but you do have to be disciplined with your money management so that you have some money to risk, or you're willing to risk your time. A lot of our wealth was built trading time because somebody else
Yeah.
had money. And so we would use our brains and our knowledge and our phone skills to do things like, I did 17 manufactured homes on land, knowing nothing about it when I was doing it, by partnering with a friend and mentor who, he had the funds and didn't want to do that work. And I'm
Yeah.
like, cool, I'll do that work. You fund it. And then we both made great money in it. And so, um, you know, creating hustling to make income such that you can create passive income through real estate, eventually the second half of your life gets to become, where do I want to give it away? I have for probably 20 years driven around with a little fortune cookie that says, you will always have everything that you need, God.
Mm.
I added the God part, but
Yes.
I literally have, like, I don't
Wow.
realize, but subliminally, I tell myself those things every single day so that I'm not, and not to say
Amen.
I don't have fear sometimes when I am taking and making risky decisions or looking at markets that might be shifting, but I never risk the farm. And I always have faith that I will have everything that I need. You have to also become a student of wealth. God didn't just say, "Hey,
Yeah.
go be risky and go,
So true.
throw money out and hope that it comes back to you." You literally have to educate yourself such that you are being a good steward of His money.
That is so good. I'm taking notes over here, and there's only like a handful of over 7 years of podcasts that I've actually stopped to take notes. I'm like, hold on, we gotta get this one down. I don't listen back to these, and so this is like profound. And I'm just excited because again, living into that generosity mindset, living into the giving component of this book, and the heartbeat behind not only you but your grandmother is that want to give. You want to give this book to more people. And so can we give them the opportunity to do so now by buying and giving a book?
Yeah, absolutely. So, um, I wrote this book so that I could get the information into the hands of the people that need it. And a lot of times, the hands of the people that need it don't have the money to even buy the book. So, we created a text give to 59559. You buy one, I'll give one. And so, also just on a mission, because obviously, the more we sell, the more the message gets out there. And I really, really just want to see this bless people. I have some incredible women in my life that have struggled, are struggling just to financially give themselves some stability. And when I'm able to offer them jobs and opportunities because we've built enough wealth that we get to offer those blessings. And to see their kiddos in the background of cameras, hi, Kristen. And like, you're not just blessing them, you're blessing their kids. You're literally changing the lives of their children because you worked hard to make this a reality. And so I want to change the mindset of people so that this is not just my voice one to one, but that it's one to many so that people can make a big change in this country, in this world.
Yeah. Well, and I know that that's happening. I get to be a part of that. And I cannot wait to get it to stages, to podcasts, to bookstores across the nation. And so if you are somebody who's listening to this and you're like, man, I've got a group of women I want to give this book to, or I've got a conference coming up and I want everyone to have access to this, or I need a speaker, or I need somebody to talk on my podcast, or I need someone to teach my mastermind, please. Or let's just go into churches. Like there's ministry people here who need to be teaching this to their ministers and to their missionaries. And so wherever you're listening from, however you're listening, if you are looking for that support, I know the heart of Kristen is to come and serve and to get this message out to many. And so please reach out to her, get her book today. There's many ways to reach out to her. She's on Instagram, LinkedIn, all the places, website, but definitely before you do anything, text GIVE to 59559 and go get the business banking blueprint, the family business. I keep saying business, the family banking blueprint. It is a business because it is going to bless your family in that way. But Kristen, are there any final words you want to say to the listeners here?
I think just to sum it all up, the reason that we named it the Family Banking Blueprint is because it literally is a blueprint to fund an abundant life for your family. So it literally walks through not just how to create passive income for real estate, but how to take your kids on those adventures and how to make it tax deductible and how to it is the bank that my grandmother built, not even knowing, that will fund your abundant life. The college, the cars, all of those things. So I'm excited for you to get your hands on it and give me some feedback.
Yes, it's so good. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. Surely leave a review. Share this out to anyone who you think might need it, which is absolutely everyone. And we're so grateful for you listening in to the Messenger Movement podcast. Chat soon.
Thank you.